In Colombia, the debate of the candidates to the vice presidency will be held at the University of Santiago de Cali. The Constitution Committee of the Peruvian Congress began debating the draft law on the convening of a constituent assembly to write a new constitution. Russian President Vladimir Putin talks on the phone with his Belarusian counterpart Alexander Lukashenko within the context of strengthening bilateral relations between the two countries. Hi, this is From the South. I'm your news anchor, Leo Martin, from the TeleSUR studios in Havana. We begin with the news. Regarding the presidential election campaign in Colombia, the debate of the candidates to the vice presidency will be held at the University of Santiago de Cali. Organizers of the event say the debate will be divided into 4 blocks, where the candidates will be able to talk about their views on security, economy, education, and the current national and southwestern issues. The candidates will have 1 minute to answer questions with the right to a 30-second rebuttal reply. Additionally, there will be 2 sections of open yes and no questions. Also, the students attending the event will be given the opportunity to ask questions.
Our political program is precisely a reconciliation program, a peace program, a social justice program. Of course, we are in a political campaign, and in that political campaign, we will rule for those who vote for us and for those who do not vote for us. I believe that today there is a people sense in the street, which shows the need for a change, which shows the need to move from a politics of death to a politics of peace. Reconciliation, consensus, and dialogue, readily used before in many governments, will be part of the path we will take to contribute to the well-being and development of our nation.
Team for Colombia's vice presidential candidate Rodrigo Lara pointed out during the debate that violence in any form is not justifiable.
Violence will never be justified. I do believe mobilizations can be precisely the way they have to be, peaceful, processing and raising a voice. There are examples in the world, in many places, in many parts, because I believe that we can agree on what affects us, on poverty, on hunger in the country, but I will never justify violence, neither from the state, not from any actor.
On Tuesday, Venezuela marked the 2nd anniversary since the victory of Operation Negro Primero, in which the Bolivarian forces dismantled Operation Gideon. On May 3, 2020, a group of mercenaries attempted to enter Venezuela through the coast to create violence and commit an assassination against the president Nicolás Maduro. A group of 8 mercenaries on board of a flat-bottomed boat stocked with guns and ammunition attempted to reach the beaches of Chuao and were stopped by local fishermen who immediately alerted the National Bolivarian Armed Forces. Within the framework of this commemoration, the first vice president of the United Socialist Party of Venezuela, Diosdado Cabello, assured that this is a day of popular and revolutionary victory.
A day of popular victory, of revolutionary victory, of victory of the homeland. It was early in the morning when a group of terrorist mercenaries hired by the U.S. imperialism, paid and trained by U.S. imperialism, who had Colombia as their base of operation for this training under the orders of their president, the paramilitary drug trafficker Iván Duque.
Likewise, the first vice president of the Socialist Party of Venezuela warned that imperialism should not be trusted because it will always be the enemy of the peoples who defend their freedom.
I believe that we can all learn from all this. It has to do, or I perceive it this way, imperialism never rests. Let us never trust imperialism. It will always, always, always be the enemy of free peoples, of the peoples that wish to be free. And we here in Venezuela, together with Comandante Chavez, we decided to be free.
The first National Congress of Researchers Against Climate Change opens in Caracas, Venezuela. The National Congress is held in the Aquiles Nazoa Cultural Center in the city of Caracas and will last until next May the 5th. At least 396 people registered for the event, where more than 76 research papers will be debated and evaluated to address the national strategy to face the drought season. Venezuela's Vice President TeleSUR Rodriguez urged the countries most responsible for climate change to be accountable for their actions and create a plan to reverse its impacts.
Don't come to tell us about shared responsibilities. There are differentiated responsibilities. And the major responsible for this climate emergency must be accountable to humanity and must bring concrete actions to humanity that are not those of a global elite going to live on another planet, as seen in the movies.
We're going to take a short break now. Please join us again after this. Hi, and welcome back to From the South. In Peru, the Congress began on Tuesday a debate on a governmental proposal for a referendum on the need to set up a constituent assembly. The proposal was put forward by President Pedro Castillo and the Peru Libre political party. It will be discussed by the Constitution Commission of the Peruvian Congress. The congressional debate began at 9:30 a.m. local time. Minister Aníbal Torres and other deputies are championing the referendum proposal, which aims at asking citizens to decide on whether a constituent assembly to repeal the 1993 Constitution and formulate a new constitution should be set up. If approved, the referendum would be held together with the regional and municipal elections on October this year. In Ecuador, groups of teachers from the National Union of Educators and representatives of student unions began an indefinite hunger strike demanding equalization of salaries. With chants and banners reading "Hunger Strike Present," the demonstrators concentrated and installed tents in front of the Constitutional Court. During the concentration, participants in the activity denounced that police agents tried to stop the installation of the tents. The strikers are demanding the salary equalization contemplated in the reforms to the Organic Law of Intercultural Education, which was rejected by President Guillermo Lasso. In this sense, they demand that 9 judges that make up the Constitutional Court ratify the reforms to the LOIE. It is expected that during the day, more teachers from different cities of the country will join the activity. Social organizations denounced on Tuesday the presence in Panama of the head of European diplomacy, Josep Borrell, who they consider a promoter of war. The activists gathered in front of the Grand Sheraton Hotel in Panama City, where Borrell is attending a meeting of foreign ministers of Central America and the Caribbean. Leaders of the National Front for the Defense of Economic and Social Rights described the High Representative of the European Union as an interventionist who arrived in the country to align the governments of the region to the warlike interests of NATO and the United States. The demonstrators qualified the government of Laurentino Cortizo as a sellout and condemned it for, in their words, violating the constitutional condition of neutrality of the Central American nation.
A visit that should not be pleasant for all Panamanians, since this gentleman is a promoter of war, and what he is coming is to meet with all leaders, to lend himself and so transfer through a channel any amount of weapons, to continue promoting those intents of war, which the people of Ukraine suffer. We Panamanians are in solidarity because we are not promoters of war. Once here in our country, the Yankee Empire invaded us. They assassinated and killed innocent people. Mean imperialism wants to bend and have control of the world, and that is why we are rejecting the visit.
Cuba inaugurated the 40th edition of the International Tourism Fair FitCuba with more than 5,000 participants from various countries around the world. The event was held at Plaza America Convention Center and the beach resort of Varadero, located 150 kilometers from Havana. The event was attended by the heads of several ministries of the Caribbean nation, representatives of the accredited diplomatic corps, business people, tour operators, and travel agencies, among others linked to the industry. Beginning the international guests, there were ministers of tourism of Argentina, Mexico, and Venezuela. The program of the fair, which will take place until Saturday, May 7th, includes the presentation of business opportunities for foreign investment, a World Cocktail Championship, and the promotion of cultural tourism in the largest of the Antilles. A forum was held in El Salvador to discuss the current journalistic crisis in the country on the occasion of International Press Freedom Day. The event was organized by the Journalism Department of the University of El Salvador and was attended by various representatives of the profession. The communicators present at the conference reiterated the significant setback present in terms of freedom of expression in the country due to the constant censorship measures of the government of Nayib Bukele. The speakers lamented how journalism was affected by the reform measures imposed by the authorities, which condemned any publications of news related to the current war against gangs.
I believe that this is not a day to celebrate, but rather a day of much reflection, of much concern. Fundamentally, because I believe that there is too much prior censorship, and what it is generating is also self-censorship. And I have no doubt that this self-censorship is manifested through fear.
Human rights organizations denounced that at least 15 journalists remain under terrible conditions of detention in prisons of the Israeli occupation forces. The Palestinian Prisoners Club denounced on the occasion of World Press Freedom Day that numerous journalists were persecuted, harassed, arrested, and beaten by Tel Aviv forces while carrying out their work. At the same time, they condemned the increase in abuses against Palestinian journalists in recent years, reporting that in 2021, the Israeli military committed 384 violations against reporters working in areas of the Palestinian territory. We have more news coming up after a final short break. Please stay with us.
Who's moving the chessmen? What interests motivate the actors behind each event? The board is deployed there. Critical Move investigates every event from Monday to Friday. Only on TeleSUR. Every year, thousands of people leave their homeland to reach new horizons. A reality of those people who struggle for their freedom. Know the diverse causes of those who live between borders. Thursdays, only on TeleSUR.
We are approaching a new era. Technology trends and the massive deployment of new networks. It is just the beginning of what lies ahead in this new decade. Atomun. Travelers of knowledge.
Hi and welcome back. Russian President Vladimir Putin talked on the phone with his Belarusian counterpart Alexander Lukashenko within the context of strengthening bilateral relations between the two countries. The leaders discussed the ongoing military operation in Ukraine to protect the population of the Donbass region. Putin and Lukashenko also spoke about the forthcoming meeting of the leaders of the member states of the Collective Security Treaty Organization. The heads of state noted that the talks are a continuation of the ongoing dialogues between Moscow and Minsk. In Ukraine, more than 100 civilians were evacuated from the area of the Azovstal steel plant in the city of Mariupol in a joint operation with the Red Cross. Reports said that the evacuees, among whom were some injured, arrived in the city of Zaporizhia, controlled by the Kiev forces. This follows the establishment of a permanent humanitarian corridor opened by Russia, ensuring the evacuation of civilians from the facilities and areas near the plant, which was occupied by neo-Nazi militias. In this regard, the Russian Ministry of Defense reported that over the previous weekend, 126 civilians were evacuated from Azovstal and nearby buildings.
We live in an incredible situation. The city is practically destroyed. They destroyed everything that could be destroyed. The Ukrainian armed forces did everything possible for this, and especially Azov made its best efforts. There can be no Ukraine after what these bastards did in the city. I do not even want to breathe the same air they breathe. With those scumbags, they were hiding under my window, armed. Their tank passed by the street, by my sister's and brother's house. Now everything is destroyed.
In Moldova, authorities of the self-proclaimed Republic of Transnistria reported that border officials managed to thwart an attack in the town of Mayak. The Ministry of Interior of the self-proclaimed Republic informed in a press release that border guards discovered and neutralized a drone, which was loaded with 2 kilograms of explosives and a 5-liter container with an incendiary mixture. In the text, the ministry states that the explosive device was launched from the Ukrainian side, but was shot down before being remotely activated by a radio signal. Local media believes that the objective of the drone was to sabotage the cooling system of a radio center in the region. If the attack were executed, the center would have been completely disabled. The leaders of Finland and Sweden indicated their governments have not yet decided whether to join NATO and stressed close security cooperation with other European countries. Speaking after a meeting with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz near Berlin, Finland's Prime Minister Sanna Marin said the current situation changed the security environment completely. Her Swedish counterpart Magdalena Andersson said the Nordic nations' parliament is conducting a security review that will be presented on May 13th. NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg said both countries would be welcomed if they decided to join the 30-nation military organization and could become members quite quickly. The Armenian opposition is once again blocking the streets of Yerevan, demanding the resignation of Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan. The demonstrations, which began last May 1st, were called by opposition sectors in rejection of the policies of Pashinyan's government, demanding his resignation. During these days of protests, acts of violence were recorded amid blockades on the main access roads to the capital. According to local media, the police made more than 200 arrests. However, the demonstrators will continue in the streets, according to the Vice President of the National Assembly, Ishkan Sakhtelian. The protests are a continuation of those that began in 2021, after Pashinyan resigned and called for elections, which he later won. The party of the Armenian Prime Minister won the parliamentary elections at the end of last June, so Nikol Pashinyan could be fully elected. An unusual heat wave is scorching parts of India with acute power shortages affecting millions as demand for electricity surges to record levels. Supplies of coal at many thermal power plants are running perilously low. The shortages are sparking scrutiny of India's long reliance on coal, which produces 70% of the country's electricity. The shortages hit as blisteringly high temperatures are sweeping over parts of the country, prompting authorities to close schools, spark fires at gigantic landfills, and shriveling crops. Current power cuts are hurting the economy, which recovered after pandemic shutdowns, and could disrupt essential services such as hospitals, experts warn. Many cities are experiencing blackouts of up to 7 hours. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi called for dialogue to end the conflict in Ukraine at the start of a European tour on Monday, but steered clear of condemning Russia over the special military operation this Tuesday after his meeting with Denmark's Queen Margrethe. India, which imports much of its military hardware from Russia, has long walked a diplomatic tightrope between the West and Moscow and has called only for an immediate end to hostilities. We have insisted on a ceasefire and called for talks as the only way to resolve disputes since the start of the Ukrainian crisis, Modi told reporters after talks with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz in Berlin, who also invited India to join at the G7 meeting next month. The two governments later signed a joint declaration expressing strong support for upcoming talks between the European Union and India on a free trade agreement. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres visited on Tuesday a displaced people's camp in Niger, where he appealed for humanitarian and military aid for an impoverished country battling insurgents. Guterres traveled to the camp at Walam in the southwest of the country on the fourth day of a trip to West Africa, delayed by the crisis in Ukraine. He met with several dozen displaced people and refugees from Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso in a school courtyard at the camp.
There has to be solid financial support from a humanitarian point of view, from a development point of view, because the best way to fight terrorism is to ensure that there is hope, that there is a future, that people can have schools, hospitals, jobs. Niger deserves your support. The international community must be worthy of the admirable effort that is being made at the moment by Nigerians.
We've come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at TeleSUR English. You can also join us on social media for all the latest news. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I am Dio Martin. Thank you for watching.